Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are following a rapidly developing story that has captured the attention of the entire world. Reports are coming in that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made a direct and urgent appeal to Russia, asking President Vladimir Putin not to provide Iran with the advanced Su-35 fighter jets, often called the Iranian superjets. This moment marks a major turning point in Middle East geopolitics, and the stakes could not be higher. Sources close to the Israeli government are confirming that Netanyahu personally reached out to Russian officials in an attempt to halt what could become one of the most destabilizing military transactions in years. The Su-35 is a fourth-generation plus fighter aircraft equipped with advanced radar systems, long-range missile capacity, and stealth features that could shift the air power balance in the entire region. Israeli defense planners are now facing what they describe as a nightmare scenario. For decades, Israel has maintained air superiority across the Middle East, allowing it to act decisively when it felt its security was under threat. But the arrival of Su-35 jets in Iranian hands could change that equation overnight. Israel fears that Iran, equipped with these aircraft, could threaten not just its borders, but its overall strategic reach, including operations across Syria, Lebanon, and the Red Sea corridor. Diplomatic sources indicate that Netanyahu warned Moscow that this deal could trigger a dangerous escalation. Israel might have to take what it calls preventive actions if the deal goes through. Behind the scenes, discussions are intensifying as both Russian and Iranian officials remain silent, refusing to confirm or deny the sale publicly. But analysts say that the transfer is part of a much broader shift as Moscow and Tehran draw closer under the pressure of Western sanctions. Russia has increasingly turned to Iran for military support in its ongoing conflict with Ukraine. Iran has supplied drones and military hardware in return for Russian technological and defense cooperation. The rumored Su-35 deal is seen as part of that growing partnership. If delivered, these jets could become the crown jewel of Iran's Air Force, which currently relies on decades-old US and Soviet-era planes. For Israel, the idea of facing an Iran with modern fighter jets is deeply unsettling. Israeli pilots have long trained under the assumption that their air force dominates the skies. That dominance gives Israel both strategic deterrence and operational confidence. Losing it could alter how Israel responds to threats across its borders. Experts in Washington, London, and Tel Aviv agree that this development could lead to an arms race in the Middle East. Countries such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt might all look to upgrade their air forces to match the new threat. This would mean billions of dollars in new weapons deals and a surge of military buildup that could push the region toward another phase of instability. Inside Israel, military leaders are said to be conducting emergency consultations. The Israeli Air Force Command has reportedly been tasked with assessing how to counter the Su-35 threat using existing assets like the F-35 and F-16 fighter jets. The F-35 stealth fighters remain Israel's most advanced air platforms and could still outperform the Su-35 under certain conditions. But defense analysts warn that the margin for error would become much smaller. The Israeli government is also increasing its diplomatic pressure on Washington, urging the United States to intervene with Moscow through back channels. However, given the strained relations between Russia and the West since the invasion of Ukraine, such intervention might have limited effect. Some Israeli officials believe that only direct pressure from Moscow's allies like China or regional partners could change the outcome. Iran, meanwhile, is presenting itself as a sovereign power that has every right to strengthen its defenses. Tehran's officials have publicly stated that they will not be intimidated by Israeli threats or Western objections. The Iranian military has already been training pilots believed to be preparing for these new aircraft. Intelligence leaks suggest that dozens of Iranian aviators have undergone training in Russia over the past 2 years in anticipation of this exact deal. The Su-35's capabilities are what make this issue so explosive. It can fly at speeds of up to 2.5 times the speed of sound, reach altitudes exceeding 18,000 meters, and detect enemy aircraft from over 400 kilometers away. Its radar can track multiple targets simultaneously, and its long-range missiles make it a serious challenge even for stealth fighters. For Iran, acquiring such technology would represent a historic leap forward in defense capability. Israel sees it differently. Officials describe it as giving a hostile regime the means to strike anywhere in the region. Israeli intelligence believes that Iran could deploy these jets not only for defense, but also for offensive missions supporting proxy groups like Hezbollah or militias in Syria and Iraq. Such a scenario could expose Israel to attacks from multiple directions simultaneously. Regional analysts note that the timing of this escalation is significant. It comes as global powers are realigning and traditional alliances are being tested. With the United States focused on Europe and Asia, the Middle East power balance is shifting rapidly. Russia is using its defense exports as a tool to gain leverage. Iran is seizing that opportunity to strengthen its hand against long-standing rivals. The Netanyahu government is trying to prevent the situation from reaching a point of no return. Officials fear that once the deal is finalized, there will be no diplomatic path left to stop it. That fear has triggered an unprecedented wave of behind-the-scenes activity involving diplomats, intelligence officers, and defense contractors. In Tel Aviv, reports suggest emergency meetings have been held at the Israeli Ministry of Defense with top Air Force and intelligence officials present. They are assessing how quickly Iran could integrate the new aircraft and what countermeasures could be deployed in response. Satellite monitoring and electronic intelligence gathering have also intensified around Iranian air bases that could potentially receive the jets. Israel's message to Moscow remains clear: do not destabilize the region. Do not give Iran a weapon that could embolden its regional ambitions. Netanyahu reportedly told Russian diplomats that such a step would leave Israel with no choice but to act to ensure its national security. The warning echoes Israel's long-standing policy of preemptive defense, which has guided many of its military operations over the past decades. However, Moscow has its own calculations. Russia values its partnership with Iran not only for economic reasons, but also as a strategic counterweight against Western influence in the Middle East. By providing Iran with advanced technology, Moscow strengthens its own influence across the region. Kremlin officials view Israel as aligned with the United States and therefore less of a reliable partner. Some analysts argue that this episode reflects a deeper shift where nations like Russia, China, and Iran are building a new axis of power. This axis seeks to challenge the dominance of Western-led alliances and reshape global security frameworks. Israel, standing firmly in the Western camp, finds itself navigating an increasingly complex and hostile geopolitical environment. On the Iranian side, celebrations could already be underway. State media has begun hinting that new fighter aircraft will soon join their air fleet, though, without naming the source country. This aligns with previous Iranian statements claiming that they have reached agreements with several friendly nations to enhance defense capabilities. If these hints prove true, it could confirm Israel's worst fears. Military experts say the introduction of Su-35 jets into the Iranian arsenal could force Israel to rethink its entire air defense network. Israel might have to deploy more Iron Dome batteries, increase reliance on surface-to-air missile systems, and enhance its early warning radar coverage. Such upgrades would come at a heavy financial cost, potentially billions of dollars over the coming years. Meanwhile, the United States Department of Defense has issued a cautious statement saying it is closely monitoring developments. Washington has reiterated its commitment to Israel's security, but has not commented directly on any diplomatic efforts to stop the deal. Some American officials privately admit that Russia is unlikely to bow to pressure from the West over arms sales to Iran, given the current state of global relations. Observers are also pointing to domestic politics within Israel. Netanyahu faces intense scrutiny at home over judicial reforms and ongoing protests. A national security crisis could shift public attention and consolidate support among his base. Some critics argue that his tough stance toward Iran and Russia is also meant to project strength domestically. At the same time, Iranian leaders are using this situation to boost their own political image. The promise of modern weapons helps Tehran portray itself as a rising power standing firm against foreign pressure. State-controlled television networks in Iran are already framing the issue as proof that Western sanctions have failed to isolate the country. Across the Arab world, reactions are mixed. Some governments quietly support Israel's concerns, fearing that a heavily armed Iran could dominate the region. Others, however, see the arms deal as a counterbalance to Israeli and Western military influence. The division reflects the growing fragmentation of alliances across the Middle East. If Russia does proceed with the sale, it will likely do so gradually. Experts believe that initial deliveries could take place within months, depending on logistics and pilot readiness. Each jet costs tens of millions of dollars and requires specialized maintenance infrastructure. Iran would need to build or upgrade bases to host these aircraft, which means satellite surveillance will easily detect any new developments. The question everyone is now asking is whether Israel will wait or act preemptively. Historically, Israel has launched strikes on facilities it viewed as existential threats, such as nuclear reactors or weapons stockpiles. But striking a Russian-made fighter jet deal could invite a completely different level of confrontation. Moscow has warned in the past that any attacks on its equipment or personnel would cross a red line. This leaves Israel in a strategic dilemma. Waiting could mean facing stronger opposition in the future. Acting now could ignite a confrontation with both Iran and Russia. Either path carries enormous risk, and the entire international community is watching closely to see which direction the situation takes. Defense analysts say that the next few weeks will be critical. Satellite imagery, intelligence leaks, and diplomatic statements will offer clues about what happens next. Every sign of movement at Russian or Iranian airfields will be scrutinized. Every word from Moscow or Tehran will be dissected by intelligence agencies worldwide. The potential consequences are enormous. A successful delivery of Su-35s to Iran could embolden Tehran's regional allies and proxies. It could alter the calculations of Western powers operating in the region. It could even draw new lines in global geopolitics. Israel's effort to stop it is not just about its own survival, but also about maintaining the fragile balance of deterrence that has kept larger wars at bay for years. As of now, there is no official confirmation from the Kremlin. Russian state media remains silent on the specifics of any arms deal with Iran. But the consistent pattern of cooperation between the two countries makes it clear that something significant is taking place behind closed doors. In Jerusalem, security officials continue to hold late-night meetings. Emergency alerts and military readiness drills have reportedly increased. Fighter squadrons are maintaining higher readiness levels. The Israeli intelligence community is monitoring every development closely with the support of allies in the United States and Europe. Iran, on the other hand, projects confidence. Its leaders say they are ready for any outcome and will not back down under pressure. They claim that modern weapons are necessary for defending their sovereignty against what they call external aggression. Iranian state television continues to air footage of military parades showcasing missiles, drones, and aircraft in a show of defiance. This standoff between Israel and Iran through the Russian connection could become one of the most defining stories of this decade. It brings together military technology, diplomacy, and global politics into one volatile mix. The stakes involve not just the balance of power in the Middle East, but also the broader contest between Western and Eastern blocs. As tension grows, markets are also reacting. Oil prices have seen minor fluctuations, driven by fears that conflict in the region could disrupt supply chains. Investors are watching every headline from Moscow, Tehran, and Jerusalem for signs of escalation. Any confrontation involving these powers would have global economic consequences. For now, Israel waits. Diplomacy is still on the table, but time is running out. Every day that passes brings Iran closer to acquiring capabilities that could change the regional landscape. The question remains whether words will be enough or whether action will follow. As more updates surface, we will continue to follow this breaking story. The world is on alert. The decisions made in Moscow, Tehran, and Jerusalem in the coming days could shape the future of global security. Stay tuned for further coverage and analysis as this situation unfolds. Thanks for watching. For more updates, subscribe our channel, like and share this video.